the roll now is Greg Shelton. He's from Oklahoma. This is one of about 7,800 Wildcats that were built during World War II, but watch him as he pulls the nose up. This is a very unique part of the flight because he's going to take his right hand off the stick, put his left hand on the stick, and then take his right hand and play landing gear up into the wheel well, 28 turns to get him up there. Then, once he gets the wheels up and locked, puts his right hand back on the stick, left hand back on the throttle, and sets up to work his magic in the FM-2 Wildcat. It was in 1937 that the aircraft prototype first flew, and after Grumman had gotten through some more modifications of the airframe, 1939 the XF-4F-2 actually flew, and that was the one that was accepted by the Navy. However, the Navy, our U.S. Navy, was not the first customer of the aircraft coming off the production line. The first 5 went to Canada. And the next... Oh, that's a great sound. And the next 90 went to the Royal Air Force. Now, Grumman Iron Works, Grumman Aircraft Company of Long Island, there's Gary Ward with all of those streamers that he picked up. He got a load there, folks. Look at that stuff. Now, again, high overhead, Greg Shelton in the Wildcat, the Grumman who built this airplane, designed this airplane, was also then tasked with working on the follow-on airplane to supersede this airplane at the beginning of World War II. But since Grumman had to start working on the F-6F Hellcat, production on the airplane was turned over to General Motors. Yep, the folks that make your Chevrolets and stuff like that. And 4 different factories were set up, converted from automobile factories to build these. So the F-4F Wildcat, the designation by the Grumman for the Grumman aircraft, F-4 Fighter 4 and F for Grumman, and that was their manufacturer's designation, became the FM-2, F for Fighter, M for General Motors, and 2 for their version of the Wildcat. It all began, depending on the history, between 7,200 some or 7,800 some Wildcats were built. And a number of those early General Motors Wildcats were turned over to the Royal Navy out of the first 1,150, 1,700 people of the Royal Navy. They were known as the Martlet. The Mark II and the Mark V and the Mark VI, as I recall. And the Martlet has a very great distinction in that 2 Martlets, these American-built airplanes flown by the Royal Navy, have the distinction of being the first American-built aircraft to shoot down a German airplane. And that happened in 1940, before the U.S. got involved in World War II. This has a really unique sound that is probably only mirrored by a North American aviation airplane called the T-28 Trojan. The way this airplane sounds, we hear the propeller tips going supersonic, but listen as it goes by, listen at the throaty bumble that it gets. That has to do with the fact that the exhaust stacks are split and several cylinders are off one side, several cylinders are off the other. So you hear half the cylinders firing as it goes by in the exhaust. Greg's interest in aviation began very young, watching the boring bombers, the firefighting aircraft in Northern California and listening to his dad's adventures of flying fighters in the U.S. Navy. Greg started flying in a J-3 Cub, and after he got involved not only in flying, he got involved in restoring aircraft. Did a restoration of a North American Texan, but in 2006 he sold it. Yes, this airplane here. Of the 7,800 or whatever number that is accurate, we're not sure, about 15 to 18 are flyable in the world today, according to my sources. Version of the FM-2, officially called the Wildcat, was named the best fighter below 10,000 feet, even compared to the more powerful and faster F-6F, the F-44 Sarah, the B-47 Thunderbolt. The FM-2, built by General Motors, was the most built and most powerful version of the Wildcat, often referred to as the Wilder Wildcat. The British, although officially calling it, as I mentioned, the Martlet, had a nickname for it, and I don't know where this came from, but they called it the Peanut Special. The engine started out being a 1,200 horsepower Pratt & Whitney radial engine with 14 cylinders. Then later on, that got souped up to about 1,350 horsepower. A lot of moving parts in these radial engines, as in any engine, but rather than being a straight 6 or an opposing 4 or a straight 4 or a V6 or a V8 like we have in our cars, and being liquid, a majority of the engines used in World War II aircraft were air-cooled radial engines, radial piston engines, and they had their pistons arranged in a circle around the central propeller shaft, and the pistons would deliver their power strokes right to that central propeller shaft and turn the propeller. That really is an awesome sound. The prototype from 1937 actually did not have folding wings, and it was not until the 1939 second prototype of the Wildcat that was the one that had folding wings to make room on the deck of the carrier. Camera's on. Here's the last pass of the Wildcat with Greg Shelton from Collinsville, Oklahoma. Photo pass, and watch and listen. Greg Shelton completing his demonstration in the FM-2 Wildcat. Let's hear it for him. In just a moment, we're going to launch 2 aircraft from the Warrior Flight Team. Those are Czech-built L-39 Albatross trainers from the Soviet Union, from the former Soviet Union. After the Soviet Union collapsed in about 1990 or so, a number of these trainers became available on the open market. Looks like we got a little more going. Greg Shelton does his victory roll before he comes back into land. But the L-39s that will take off in just a moment became available on the surplus market, and some enterprising Americans were able to purchase some. And the original ones, I'm told, that came over to this country were purchased for about $70,000 or so. They took the wings off, traded them up, brought them over on ships, then took them to one of several different restoration facilities here in the United States that were prepared for this sort of thing, and they were made usable in the American airspace system. And there are those who have considered these to be known as Cold War trophies. Now, we're going to take you back to World War II again as Greg Shelton prepares to land, and you'll see these two L-39 Albatross aircraft launch. But coming up right now, we've got a couple of airplanes from the fighter factory, and Boom Powell is here with me. And Boom, this is, we're going to see something that I mentioned briefly during Greg's demonstration about folding wings to make room on the deck of a carrier for more aircraft.
This is going to be great, Rob. One of the things you are going to see is there's two different styles of wing fold. Mr. Grumman himself apparently devised the one that you're going to see on the Avenger, which is a little bit different as opposed to the Corsair, and if our Skyraider makes it out here, how they do it. And that's the classic. Flip them up, stick them up straight in the air, and that's the way you get them out of the way. Grumman looked at it and says, you know, it'd be better if we could just lay the wing alongside the airplane and save space that way and be lower.